The year was 1968 and I was in grade 8 in the Hyderabad public school, which means I was 13 years old because I started schooling at the age of 4. I had a very bad attack of jaundice. And then they said to me that I must take absolute rest. I must not move from my bed. That was the treatment at the time. But for a 13-year-old to be told to stay in bed the whole day was neither realistic nor was it going to happen, and it didn't happen with me either. So the result is I had a relapse. And the consequence of that was that I didn't go to school for the whole of that term, all 4 months. Now we had term exam. So my father spoke to the principal of the school, a man by the name of K. Kuruvilla Jacob, one of my greatest inspirations in life. And Mr. Jacob agreed that if my father could get me to study at home, then I could take the exam. But he warned my father that he said, the chances of him even passing the exam are pretty slim. So why do you want him to do that? My father told him the truth. He said he is the one who wants to do it, which is me. So I studied at home and I took the exam. Now in our days, if you got over 70%, it was called a first class. And if you got over 80%, it was called a distinction. And those who got first class and distinction were called up on stage in the morning assembly, and they were given the first class and distinction cards. It was a little card with your name on it. You were given that card by the principal himself, who shook your hand and presented this to you. So I studied and I took the exam, and I got a first class. I got some, I can't remember exactly, I think 72, 73% or something like that. So I got a first class. And then when I went to school, on the day when the card presentation was happening, I was called up, my name was called up, Yawar Baig, first class. So I walked up to the stage, and as I got onto the stage, Mr. Jacob is standing there with a card in his hand. He shakes my hand. He gives me the card. He shakes my hand, and he said, "What, Yawar? You got tired of getting distinctions, is it?" Now, this is a 13-year-old boy, and I used to get distinctions in all my exams right through school. So there's no exam I did that I didn't get less than 80% in. Now, to modern schooling, especially in India, if you say 80%, some of you listening to this might say, "Oh, so big deal. My son gets 99.89%, and then even then he is 10th in the class or something." We had a more sane and sensible system of grading. We didn't have this completely. One of the many reasons I am happy that I'm 64 years old and I don't go to school anymore is because I don't have to deal with that kind of a grading system. Anyway, so he says this to me by name. Now, of course, he must have read my name on the card, or he remembered the name, or God knows. But point is that he shakes my hand and he says, "What, Yawar? You got tired of getting distinctions, is it?" Now, I was in the school for the rest of that class, for the rest of that year, and then I was in the school for another until I graduated out in grade 12, 1972, class of 1972. And I never ever got a first class again. I got distinctions throughout. The only first class in my career that I had in school was that time because of my jaundice and relapse. Now, my point is that I'm speaking to you as teachers, as principals, as heads of schools, as head administrators and so on. And I want to talk to you about what is really important in schooling. I think we have got, my opinion about schooling is that by and large, whether it is India, whether it is Nigeria, whether it is the United States, whether it is UK, whether it's Malaysia, whichever country, general schooling, and I'm not saying that there are no exceptions, there are exceptions and all power to the exceptions. But we need to make that exception into the rule. We don't want to be in a situation where the exception proves the rule. And the rule seems to be that our schooling is in a mess. And why do I say that? Because the product of schooling is society. Let me ask you a straightforward question. Are you happy with the kind of society that there is? Whichever country you live in, right? With the exception probably of New Zealand. Whichever country you live in, are you happy with the society that you are in? Again, exceptions prove the rule. We have societies which are filled with hatred, which are filled with discrimination, which are filled with all kinds of cruelty, where there is no compassion, where 8 people, 8 men, all the people who are so gender sensitive, think about this one, 8 men, their collective wealth, what they own, is more than the collective wealth of 50% of the world's population, 3.5 billion. And I can bet you that since those 8 men are not listening to this one, all the rest of you who are listening to my talk are out of that 3.5 billion or 4 billion. Your collective wealth is less than the wealth of 8 men. Is this something which is satisfactory? Are you happy with that? And if you are not happy with that, and I sincerely hope that you are not just unhappy, I hope that you are literally at your wits' end about this. I hope that you are desperately unhappy. I hope you are very angry about this. Because if you are not, you got to go and check your heart and you must check your mind. But if you are, and I hope you are, then believe me, you as teachers are in the exact correct position where this situation can be changed. Make no mistake, you are in the absolutely right position where this situation can be changed. And what is that situation? The situation is that we can actually have a world where wealth distribution is more logical, more sensible, more equitable. I'm not saying this purely out of any socialist leanings or any communist ideology. I'm saying this for very materialistic, capitalistic reason. And that is that if anybody wants to get wealthy, what do they need? They need a market of people who are capable of buying the product or service that they are selling. If I'm selling iPhones and I want to sell iPhones in a country where people are scrambling to earn $2 a day to support their families, what kind of sales figures do you think I'm going to have? I don't think I need to give any more examples. I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. Poverty is a cancer because it destroys society from inside. Every poor person, no matter how poor he or she is, needs to eat. They need to support their families. They need shelter for themselves and their families. They get sick and they need medical treatment. They need clothing. They need all kinds of benefits, but they cannot pay for them. Please notice, I'm not saying they will not pay for them. I'm saying they cannot pay for them. They would ideally, just ask yourself a very simple question. Go into one of the slums. I'm sure many of you have been there. Go to one of the poor villages in your country. In our country, and since I'm speaking to, I don't know who else in the world, I'm saying your country. Look at some poor person and ask yourself, that person there, does he really not want to own a car? Notice I'm not talking about BMWs and Maseratis and Rolls Royces, and I'm not talking about private planes and yachts. I'm talking about a straightforward car. Does that person not want to own a car or a scooter or a motorcycle? Does that person not want to have money, not just to feed themselves, but once in a while to take a few friends out to a restaurant and give them a nice meal? Don't those people want that? So the fact that they don't have that is not because they don't want it. It's because they don't have it, because they can't have it. And why can't they have it? Because we have a system in society that does not take care of those who have less. Now let me continue with my story. So there was this man, Mr. K. Kuruvela Jacob, the principal of Hyderabad Public School. And this was my interaction with him. I want to tell you about two more stories of K. Kuruvela Jacob, and then I want to tell you another story about the man who succeeded him, which was MC Watsa. MC Watsa was the father of Prem Watsa, the Canadian billionaire, who's called the Warren Buffett of Canada. Prem's father was my principal in school. Now, when Mr. Kuruvela Jacob was principal, this was the period between 1965 and I think it was 1970, because Mr. Watsa came in my last 2 years in school, so that was 70 to 72. So this was 1970. We had a system in school. No, before that. In 68, same year as my earlier story, when I was in grade 8. My class was in a sort of U-shaped building. There were 3 classes in that building. And there was an open courtyard which was paved with Shahabad stone. And on the other end were the toilets. Our school was a boys' school, boys only, no girls. Now it's become HPS is now a co-ed school, but in my time there were no girls. So this was there were the toilets, there were the urinals. Now, boys' school, and this is one of the problems. People used to write all kinds of graffiti, and to put it politely, it wasn't very polite. So this was on the walls. Now one day, just before our tea break, which was around 11 o'clock, 11 or 11:30, I see Mr. Jacob come in and start and walking towards the urinals, walking towards the toilets. Now I must describe Mr. Jacob for you. Mr. Jacob was a tall man. He was from Kerala. He was dark complexioned. He was tall. He was like me, getting bald in the front. And he always wore white. He would wear a white, what today we call safari suit. I mean, those days this thing didn't have a name, but it was a white half-sleeved bush jacket with patch pockets and white trousers and black shoes. And his shoes were the best shined shoes that I have ever seen in my life. So there is a reason I'm describing this appearance to you, because of what I'm about to say. So I see this just before our bell rang for our interval. I see Mr. Jacob walking into the toilets. And behold, Mr. Jacob is carrying a bucket in which I can see a broom and a brush sticking out. So I dug my elbow into my classmate's, seatmate's ribs, and I pointed to him. I said, "Look there." And he looked at it. He said, "What the hell is he doing?" And then the bell rang. And when the bell rang, all of us boys, we trooped out. We all gathered in front of the toilet. And what do we see? We see Mr. Jacob cleaning the graffiti on the walls. So he throws water, he throws cleaner, he takes the brush, he rubs all that, he throws some water again. And then all the graffiti on the walls is cleaned. There's water on the floor, there's water on his shoes. And then he takes the broom and he sweeps it all into the drain. He finishes that, he puts the broom and the bucket and the brush back in his bucket. He picks up his bucket, he comes out of the toilet, and all of us are standing there looking at him. He smiles at us and he walks away. Not one word. The man did not speak one word. He didn't, for example, say, what kind of, upbringing do people have? What kind of homes do you come from? Why do you write this stuff on these walls? You should be ashamed of yourself. You come to a great school like this, which is in those days it was one of 6 schools in the whole country. But you don't have, you have these kinds of manners. You are nothing. The man did not say one single word. He just picked up his bucket and he smiled at us. Remember, he didn't ignore us. He didn't frown at us. He didn't scowl at us. He smiled at us and he walked away. And this was in grade 8. I was in that school for another 4 years. I never ever saw any graffiti on any toilet wall in that school. Now remember, that toilet was not the only toilet in the school, because the school was sprawled totally. We had 100 acres of land, so we had a lot of land. The school was in several buildings. Every building had its own toilets, and because there were the classes there and so on. And Mr. Jacob didn't go around cleaning all the toilets in the school. Why he picked our toilet, I don't know. Maybe we were the most poetic or something. I have no idea. But why he picked that, or maybe it was closest to his office, I have no idea. But anyway, the point being that I was eyewitness to this thing. And I can tell you that for the next 4 years, no one ever wrote anything on those walls. And I'm saying 4 years because I left the school after that. I don't know what happens. Third story about Mr. K. Kuruvilla Jacob. We had a system or a custom in the school in those days that one afternoon per term, each class would have lunch with the principal in the principal's bungalow. The principal's bungalow was a sprawling colonial-style bungalow. It had a big lawn in front, and then after the lawn was an orchard of fruit trees. On the side was a vegetable garden. The principal lived in great style. So one class, and our classes were never more than 30 people. So the 30 boys who had lunch with the principal, I think it was they were probably trying to put some good manners into us. So one class had lunch with the principal every term. Now that day it was my class's turn. So we all, lunchtime, normally we had lunch in the school dining hall. It's a very imposing, beautiful building. So this time we went to the principal's house. Food used to be very, very good. So, we look forward to that. It so happened on that day, Mr. Jacob was late. He didn't come. Usually he would be there to welcome us, but that day he wasn't. And Mrs. Jacob was a very intelligent lady. She didn't want 30 boys to be wandering around in her house before her husband turned up. So she told us, hang around outside. So we were all sprawled on the lawn. It was a big lawn. It was a nice afternoon. So we were all on the lawn. And then I noticed there were some guava trees in the orchard. So 2 of my friends and myself, 3 of us, we went into the orchard, and each of us was on top of one tree, and we were plucking guavas. And as we were doing that, we hear this deep voice, "Boys, come for lunch." Believe me, I almost dropped out of that tree like a guava. Because here I was, stealing guavas in the principal's house, caught by the principal. I'm saying caught because obviously there was no way he would have missed seeing us. And this is where you realize who your friends were, because obviously he walked past them and not one of them warned us that he's coming. They would have seen him coming. They didn't say anything. They let us be caught. And this is the value of friends. But anyway, I got out of the tree. We came there. And as we walked up to him, we see him standing there. The veranda, the school, the houses had a long veranda all along. And there were 3 small steps. You climbed them to the veranda, and then you went into the main drawing room of the house. On the left was the dining room. So there he was standing on top of the steps. On either side of him were 2 big baskets. With what, guess? Filled with ripe guavas. So the boys were all waiting, and I was the first one. I had this, for some funny reason, I was the leader for all the wrong reasons. Anyway, so I went up, and Mr. Jacob says to me, have a guava, take a guava. Now, all sorts of stuff is running through my head. I'm thinking that I'm going to get reported to my father for my behavior, and when I go home today is the last day of my life. My father is going to slaughter me, and I'm going to be chucked out of school, and God knows what's going to happen. And if you've seen Calvin cartoons, that was me. It was Calvin working in my head. In those days, of course, I didn't know about Calvin. But there's this principle. The man is saying, "Please have a guava." So I picked up one. He said, "Take one more." So I picked up another one. And he says to me, "That's better than climbing trees and eating raw guavas, right?" I mean, I would have agreed to anything he was saying at the time, believe me. But that's it. He didn't say, "Why did you climb my tree?" Have a guava. Have another guava. That's it. 1968. Today we are sitting in 2020. This happened in Hyderabad. I'm sitting here in America. You don't even know how many times I have told this story. In how many countries, to how many people. That is the power of inspiration of a teacher, right? And that is my message to you. As I told you, the world is beset with toxicity. The world is beset with hatred. The world is beset with negativity of every kind. The world is also beset. Today is my bad hair day, as you can see, but doesn't matter, don't worry about that. I'm beyond the time where I care about my hair. Today the world is beset with these things, and believe me, guess who has the maximum power to change that? You. Teachers. Your impact, you don't even know. Both negative and positive. Mr. Kruvela Jacob has been dead now a couple of decades. But I will take those memories to my grave whenever that time comes. Which brings me to my second story of Mr. Watson, MC Watson. I was in grade 10, and I was debating whether I wanted to do ISC. In those days we had Cambridge certification, so I was debating whether I should do ISC or whether I should do Metric and do PUC, the 2-year pre-university course, because I was in a dilemma whether I wanted to do medicine or not. So uh, my father was a doctor. He was absolutely focused on the fact that he wanted me to be a doctor. And at that time, I was absolutely focused on the fact that I did not want to be a doctor. Today, if you ask me, why did you not want to be a doctor? The only answer I can give you, the honest answer I can give you, is because my father wanted me to be a doctor, and he was so, you know, dominating about that. Those of you who are parents and who have aspirations and ambitions for your children, you might like to think about that. That your dominance about the aspiration can become the only reason why your child will not achieve that. So think about that. I don't have any regrets in my life. I think I've done very well for myself and I'm very happy with what I'm doing. But if anyone ever asked me and said, if you could have a change in career, what would you like to be? Today I can say I would like to be a doctor. But I'm too old for that now. So anyway, the point is that I was going through this kind of a thing. Now, I don't know how this got to my principal. Maybe my class teacher, Mr. Sambasiva Rao, was responsible for that. Maybe he told my principal that, I don't know what happened. Anyway, the long and short of it is, I was called to the principal's office. Now, when you are in school, being called to the principal's office is always invariably bad news. I mean, you had to have done something very seriously wrong to be called to the principal's office. You didn't get called to the principal's office for nothing. So here I was called to the principal's office. So I landed there. Mr. Watson meets me, shakes my hand, and he says, yeah, well, have a seat. So I sat down. He says to me, he said, if you are walking down a street in the night which is badly lit, the lighting is bad, and down that street in the distance there is a light, electric pole, there's one little light on that pole. And as you walk on down that street, you see a ghost. You see this dark shape and it's moving. And you get terrified. And you want to turn around and run. He said that would be the natural reaction, to turn around and run. Then he said, but you don't do that. You continue to walk down the street. And guess what? When you get to that ghost, you know what that ghost is? That ghost is the branch of a tree on which somebody put a piece of cloth, or maybe it's a kite or something, and it's that light from that lamppost which is throwing a shadow of this combination of this tree branch and the stuff on it, which makes it look like a ghost. It's nothing to be frightened of. It's a tree branch. He says, today you are in a dilemma. You may be feeling you're not feeling too confident about your life going forward and so on. He said, think about this. Think about this. Right? Thank you for coming. That's it. MC Watsa. I don't know whether Prem Watsa ever had this conversation with his dad. Maybe he did, because I can see he did quite well for himself. But his father, this is what he said to me. And once again, a memory I take with me in life. That courage is to face the ghosts. It's not to run away. Courage is to face the ghosts. Courage is to look at the ghost straight in the eye and continue to walk towards it until you discover that it's not a ghost at all. It's a tree branch. So what must you teach as teachers? The number one thing that I say to you is, it's not your subjects that you teach. It's not the history and the geography and the physics and the mathematics and the biology and whatnot. What you need to teach is values. You need to speak to their hearts, not to their minds. Because you are their role models, whether you like it or not. I'm not saying you are the best role models. Maybe you're not. Maybe you are. Every teacher of mine was not Kurwala Jacob. Every teacher of mine was not MC Watson. But I had some pretty good teachers. I was very lucky. I had some very good teachers in school. I had teachers in college. And I had mentors who were not formal teachers, but who taught me things which have been the greatest sources of inspiration for me throughout my life. There was Mrs. Mohini Rajan, Auntie Mohini. There was Venkatrama Reddy, Uncle Rama. There was Nick Adams in Guyana. Amazing mentors, amazing teachers, and there were more. And what did they teach me? They taught me values. They taught me values. So the first thing I want to say to you is that what you need to teach are values. Now there are 5 what I call my cardinal values, without which education is not education. 5 cardinal values. First one is faith. Faith in yourself, faith in God, whatever you believe in. Faith. And that faith meaning that you will survive, that you will overcome, that you will succeed. Faith. And remember the thing about faith. I love this quote of Barbara Winters. Barbara Winters says that when you come to the end of the light of all that you know and are about to step off into the darkness of the unknown, faith is knowing that one of 2 things will happen. There will be something firm to stand on, or you will be taught how to fly. Faith. Remember, by nature, faith is not always logical. By nature, faith is not always something that, within quotes, makes sense. And by logical conclusion, faith a lot of times does not have evidence. But like love, faith exists. So the first thing to inculcate in your students is faith. When Kuruvela Jacob shook my hand and said, "What, Yawar? You're tired of getting first class, is it? You're tired of getting discipline. You're tired of getting distinction, is it?" What was he speaking to? He was speaking to my heart. He was speaking to my pride. He said that in an assembly full of children, every single one of them is listening. Because he said that on the public address system. He was inculcating faith in me, faith in myself to say that I am distinction material. I hadn't failed in class. He could have taken the other view and he could have said, I must congratulate you on studying on your own and still getting a first class. He didn't say that. He was conscious of that. He didn't say that. He said, "You're tired of getting distinctions, is it? You just got a first class?" That is the meaning of inculcating faith. You don't do that by giving a discourse on faith. You do that by demonstrating faith. The second thing is discipline. Discipline is to get up in the morning at the time that you need to get up, not when you feel like getting up. It is to get up in the morning and make your bed, not because somebody is watching, but because at the end of the day, when you are tired and you come back, it is much nicer to come back to a made bed than to a bed which is rumpled. Discipline is to polish your shoes. Discipline is to ensure that every aspect in your life demonstrates excellence. Discipline is to do what you need to do, what you must do, not only what you want to do. That is number 2. Number 3, and I'm not saying this in an order of priority, I'm just saying these are the 5 critical values that you must inculcate. Number 3 is commitment to the truth. That only the truth matters. That lying, not only does it not work, but lying is not permissible. It is not something that you do irrespective of the circumstances. Today we have situations where people stand up and they say, I'm standing up for the truth. And then the next thing you know, that the moment some pressure comes on, he or she succumbs and lies and cheats. And then when you tell them and you call them out and you say, you stood up and you said that you have a commitment to the truth, what happened? The standard answer we get is what? Ab karna padta sahab. We have to do it. I am compelled. Then where was the commitment to truth? You're compelled by what? You're compelled because you will lose your job? You're compelled because you will lose some seat in parliament or whatever? You're compelled because you will lose some money? What is this compulsion? What is truth if you are not willing to pay for it? Truth. Because only truth matters. And truth always prevails. And if you look at short-term results and you say, you look at this one, look at that one, they stood for the truth, did it prevail? No. Don't think of it like this. Ask yourself a simple question. Who do you have respect in your heart for? A truthful person or a liar? It's as simple as that. Ask yourself, who do you respect? Somebody who was truthful or somebody who told lies? 4th one, and again as I said, and I'm going to say it again and again, it's not in an order of priority. 4th one, kindness. Maybe this should be the first one. If it was an order of priority, I would say kindness is the number 1. Kindness. Kindness is not pity. Kindness is not looking down on somebody with pity. Kindness is to feel their pain. And not just feel their pain and sit there, but feel their pain and do something about it. Which brings me to the number 5, which is responsibility. Responsibility is the essence of citizenship. Citizenship is not a passport. Citizenship is not even casting a vote. It is what makes you go to cast the vote. Citizenship is not nationality. Citizenship is the willingness to take responsibility for yourself, for your society, for your country, for your world. And that comes out of kindness. Why would I want to do that? I have everything I need. And if somebody else is hurting for something, well, it's not my nose skin of my nose. That somebody is not my cousin. That somebody is not my child. That somebody is not my father or mother. But that is what makes me human. That is what makes you human. The thing which distinguishes human beings from animals is that we are concerned about others. Animals at best are concerned about their own progeny, about their own children, and that also when those children are young. I mean, the mother of the animal, the father is never concerned. The mother is not concerned once that child becomes an adult and is gone. They're only concerned when they are with them. Not human beings. Human beings, we dedicate our entire lives to somebody else's welfare. What makes us human is concern for somebody else, and I call that kindness. So 5 basic fundamental values that you must teach. Number 1, faith. Number 2, discipline. Number 3, truth. Number 4, kindness. Number 5, responsibility. And as I said, this is not in order of priority. All 5 are equally important. And then, in our teaching, we need to bring in 5 skills. A couple of them might not sound like skills, but they are skills. And I will tell you also the method by which you can teach, where you can inculcate all of this. Let me say something to you. You know the subjects that you teach, every single one of them, without exception, as long as you have children, you have students who are literate and numerate, as long as they can read and write, and they have some understanding of numbers. I'm not talking about advanced calculus, I'm saying some understanding of numbers. There is not one single subject that you teach them that in today's world they can't learn on their own. So the role of the teacher as a teacher of subjects, according to me, is zilch, is zero. No value. Because the child does not need you. The child can study that subject on their own. This is not a figment of my imagination. The entire movement worldwide towards homeschooling is proof of this. We have people who are homeschooled, who are now studying at Harvard. They were given admission to Harvard. Universities are recognizing that a child does not need to go to a formal school in order to acquire skills and knowledge. The child can do that on their own in their homes, guided by parents or whoever. And the universities are saying as long as they fulfill our admission norms, we don't care where they came from. And that's only if you are looking at a university education as your goal, because you might say, I'm not even interested in a university education. Not everyone needs to have a BA and an MBA and a PhD. As a matter of fact, very few people need to have that. What I need to have is skills in order to do something worthwhile, which can also make me some money so that I can support my lifestyle. Believe me, the world is wide open for people with skills. And I'm going to tell you how to do that. But before that, 5 skills that you must teach them. 5 values: faith, discipline, truth, kindness, responsibility. 5 skills. First and foremost, curiosity. Remember, that's the first thing you kill in your schools. I don't mean you. I mean practically every teacher does that. Practically in every school in the world. First thing that is killed and destroyed is curiosity. Who gets more attention in your school? Who gets more praise in your school? The child who asks a lot of questions, too many questions, stupid questions? Or a child who asks no questions, sits quietly, mugs up, regurgitates, vomits on the answer sheet and the exam and gets first class? Don't do that. That is the greatest skill that the child has. He's born with that. You didn't even give it to them. That's the human nature. Don't destroy it. But that's the first thing that schools destroy. Curiosity, first one. Second one, creativity, which comes out of that. I'm curious about something, so I become creative. I say, no, how do I... Creativity is the root of problem solving. And problem solving is the single master skill that we need to teach everybody. How do I solve? How do I take away this pain? Some problems are material, some problems are psychological, some problems are political, some problems are economic. We have problems of health. Right now we are sitting in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic worldwide. We are stuck. This is a problem. Somebody's got to solve it. Until somebody solves that problem, you and I are going to be sitting stuck in the middle of nowhere. Problem solving skills. Which means that children are given responsibility. That you don't teach them solutions, even when you know the solution. Let them come to the solution on their own, because you are teaching them the skill of problem solving. You are not giving them solutions to the problems. Right? I'm turning your entire education system on its head. Think about that. You are not rewarding a child for the right answer. You are rewarding a child for how they got to the answer. I had a teacher called Jim Bray in my school. And among other things, he taught us math. And if whatever answer we gave him, he would say, give me the derivation of this. How did you come to this? And if we did not have the derivation, if we had just mugged up the formula, he failed us, even though we had the right answer. He failed us. Right? Just having the right answer was not enough. Where I'm sitting, it's a bit cold, so I have my hoodie on. Teach them the tools. So curiosity and creativity. Third one, I'm curious. I saw a problem. I solved it. Now I need to, within quotes, take it to the market. I don't mean that. I'm saying within quotes because it doesn't mean necessarily every problem is a business idea or that you are selling it. But believe me, in the post-COVID world, and see my article on this, my paper I wrote on this called BC to AC, before COVID to after COVID, or before Corona to after Corona. We are looking at a world which is going to become more and more entrepreneurial, more and more small businesses, more and more self-employed people. Not people going to colleges and MBA schools and whatnot and then standing in the line with the unemployed looking for jobs. Paper pushers, we don't need them anymore. I don't think we ever needed them, but people, the world has woken up and said, no, we want people who can actually do something. So, and that's why curiosity and creativity. And with them, the third one, which is communication. I was curious enough to think about something. I produced a solution to that. Now, how do I take it to the market? How do I get people interested enough in it to invest in this? Communication. What do I do? How do I communicate verbally? How do I communicate in writing? How do I influence people? How can I change people's hearts and minds? How can I inspire people? How can I get people to believe in me, to commit to what I want them to do, which is beneficial for them and me? How can I resolve conflicts? How can I deal with disagreement? How can I agree without being disagreeable? How can I deal with diversity, people's different values, different ways of thinking, different belief systems, and yet build together a team that beats like a single heart? All of that, I'm putting that in one word, and that word is communication. So curiosity, creativity, communication. Fourth one, commitment. Commitment is a line that you cross between wanting and doing. Commitment, the sign of commitment, the only sign of commitment, the most reliable sign of commitment is your own action. I can be committed to democracy, but do I go to vote? That is the measure of my commitment. I'm committed to justice, but do I stand up against somebody who is weak and who is being oppressed? That is a level, and that is the measure of my commitment. I'm committed to success in my own life, but do I get up early every morning? What books have I read in the last 3 months? The question I'm asking you, all of you. What books have you read in the last 3 months which have the potential to contribute to your own careers? I'm not talking about your curriculum books. I'm talking about other than curriculum books. What are the books, the books that you read in the last 3 months? Knowledge adds value. What papers have you written in the last 3 months? Commitment is to do. I remember but I must tell you the story. It's it's not a nice story, but it's still a very powerful story. And the story is that I was in Chennai airport many years ago. I think it's almost 30 years ago. And I'm addicted to books. I read. You won't believe how much I read. I write. So any place I go, if there's a bookshop, I go to the bookshop. Now in the airport, it was still some time for my flight, so I was in the bookshop. And I remember I picked up some book. I can't remember what it was, but I picked up the book and I went to the cash out counter. And there was a man who was there. And he had bought a Robert Ludlum thriller. And he is saying to the cashier, and he was speaking in Tamil. I speak Tamil and Malayalam, among other languages. So he's saying to the cashier, ஏதோ ஒரு management pustakam பேர் எழுதுங்கன்னு சொல்றான். He says, write any management book name in the receipt. And what did he have? He had a Robert Ludlum novel. Now, why did he say that to the man? He's telling the man to lie, and the man lied. He wrote something, I don't know what. Why is he saying that? Because he obviously works for a company which would have reimbursed him the price of that novel, price of the book. Of course, obviously, provided it was a book which contributed to his knowledge, contributed to his development. So here he is working for an employer who is willing to pay for him to get more knowledge. And what does he do? He lies, he buys a novel, and in those days I think it cost some 120 rupees or something like that. For that 120 rupees he is willing to lie. And he's telling somebody else also to lie, and that somebody else also lies. What kind of society is this? And that's 30 years ago, and you're seeing the results today. We have a society today where lying is an aspirational value. It's not a negative thing anymore. We've gone long beyond that. To lie, to cheat, to succeed in those ways is an aspirational value. Do you think we need to change that? If you don't think we need to change that, then I apologize to you. I think you wasted your time listening to me. But if you think that you need to change that, I think the time to do that is right now. That is what I'm doing. I don't have to say all of this stuff. I don't have to make this video. I'm doing that because that is the best that I can do in this situation. I can talk to people who have the power to change the world. And who are those people? Teachers, like yourself. So 4 skills: curiosity, creativity, communication, commitment, and the 5th one, courage. Courage. That is the backbone of it all. That is the foundation. That is the OS on which all other software runs. If you do not have courage, then nothing else will happen. Nothing else will work. We need courage. Courage, remember my story with my principal, Mr. Watson? Courage is the ability to continue to walk down the road, looking at the ghost, not running away. To continue to walk down that road, looking at the ghost. So thank you very much. 5 values: faith, discipline, truth, kindness, responsibility. And 5 skills: curiosity, creativity, communication, commitment, and courage. I told you I will teach you a system to do that. And that system I call project teaching. Project teaching is very simple. Project teaching is where the role of the teacher is the role of the enabler, is not the role of a teacher. I have an article which I am going to send out with this lecture called "Oh Teacher, Stop Teaching." Oh Teacher, Stop Teaching. Instead, enable learning. That's not part of the title, I'm saying that to you. Instead, enable learning. Stop teaching, enable learning. You might say, how? I'll give you an example. Set up a project called Mountains. Now you have, the class will consist of children from multi-age groups. So it will not be only 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. In any case, this whole system of having classes based on manufacturing date, age, is a completely ridiculous system which has no logic whatsoever. In our homes, we do not say to the 5-year-old, don't talk to your 6-year-old sister, don't talk to your 8-year-old brother. On the other hand, you will say to the 8-year and 10-year-old, look after your little brother, little sister. Human beings live as communities. They don't live as groups segregated on the basis of age. We have schools which are like manufacturing factories, segregated by date of manufacture. Now that's a whole topic by itself. I don't want to go in there because there's so much wrong in the system that, according to me, the whole system needs to be revamped. I'm not going there. I'm just going to stick with what I'm saying here, which is the project teaching system. I call that the integrated teaching system. To put that in a nutshell, in a walnut shell, not a coconut shell, take a project called Mountains. Class consists of children from multi ages. So you can have children who are 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 4 different age groups or maybe even more. Small class sizes, so the whole group is not a huge. Now you're not ending up with 100 children. And in the class, it's obviously not one teacher, many teachers, including several subject teachers. You have the chemistry teacher, you have the geography teacher, you have the history teacher, you have the physics teacher, all in the same class. And the project is called Mountains. Now you might say, well, all of these different multiple discipline teachers are going to be teaching mountains. How? Well, this is how. The project is called Mountains. The task for the children is find out whatever you can about mountains. Number one. Number two, and think about what you can do with mountains. So now the children are investigating. They are finding out. We have access, thanks to technology today, to the great databases of the world. You have access from everything from the International Space Station downwards to the libraries of major universities, which are now all open source. They are available to all kinds of databases, and I'm sure you have more knowledge of that than I do. Let the children out. Form them into small groups. Let them form groups on their own. Now one is investigating how mountains happen. How mountains are born. What is it that creates a mountain? The movement of tectonic plates which pushes up pieces of the earth. So something like the Himalayas, which was at one point in time the bottom of the ocean, is now 8 kilometers up in the air, called Everest. Somebody is investigating geology of mountains. What is it that mountains, how is it that mountains are like pegs in the earth holding the tectonic plates so that they don't move up and down and we don't have earthquakes? The geostacy of mountains. Somebody is working on how mountains have snow and glaciers on top which give birth to rivers. Somebody is investigating the chemistry of mountains. Somebody is investigating the biology of mountains, the difference in fauna and flora going up the mountain. What are the trees that grow in the foothills? What are the trees that grow up in the snow line? And what are the plants that grow up in the top in the glacier itself? What is the difference in the fauna? What kind of animals and birds are in the foothills? What kind of animals and birds are in the top? What is the snow leopard doing on top, living in the ice? You get the point I'm saying? Now you might say, what is the history teacher doing? Well, the history teacher is going to be helping them with questions which they will write. You don't ask the question. You lead them to the question. And you say, how is it that the Himalayan mountain range, for example, talking of India, how is it the Himalayan mountain range was a barrier against invasions for centuries, for millennia? History is based on mountains. Mountains have played a role in history. So have rivers. We have our name as Indians thanks to the Indus River. People of the Indus. Now I'm going to leave this to your imagination. I'm sure you can think of a million questions more than this. I gave you mountains as only one thing. Take oceans. Take the sky. Take grass. Take human beings. Take our cities. You can have as many projects as your imagination allows you to have. Each project becomes a means of multidisciplinary teaching in the most exciting way possible, where the children are learning on their own and the teachers are only facilitating that learning. The role of the teacher is hygiene, is safety, ensuring that there's no bullying and stuff like that happening in the class. And then not answering questions, but pointing them in the direction where they can find the answers to their own questions. And in the process, guess what you as teachers are going to get? You are going to learn. You are going to become students once again. Believe me, I'm giving you a new lifespan. Because when we stop learning, we die. Even though we are not physically dead. When we stop learning, we die. When you start learning, you come back to life. That is what I'm proposing to you as teachers. To start living again. To have this huge excitement in your job, which is the most exciting job in the world. I've been a teacher now for 35 years. I don't teach children, I teach adults. I don't have an annual performance appraisal. I have a daily performance appraisal. My daily performance appraisal is linked directly to my earnings. If I don't perform, I don't get paid. I live in a very tough world. I live in a very beautiful world. I live in a world which I love. I live in a world which I would not exchange for anybody, for any other position in the world. I am in my own sweet spot, and that sweet spot is I learn. The whole time I am learning, and that's what keeps me alive. It unfortunately didn't stop my hair from falling, but it keeps me alive. I am excited when I wake up in the morning. I love what I do. Absolutely. And the proof of that is that I do it for free. And I pay to do that sometimes. Well, of course, when I get paid for it, I'm not objecting. But I'm saying, this is what I do. Teachers, teaching. So I wish you all the very best. I've spoken to you for an hour and 4 or 5 minutes. I hope this is worth it. The idea here was not to transfer all my knowledge to you in one meeting or one lecture. The idea here more than anything else is to put questions in your mind, to put thoughts in your mind, so that you will ask the right questions. As I told you, not the answers, but the right questions. And so that you will create a system where you are excited to come to work, whether your students are excited to come to work, and where they take away from you, like I took away from Kuruvela Jacob and MC Watsa, and like I took away from Auntie Mohini, from Uncle Rama, from Nick Adams, things and lessons which have stayed with me until today. 40 years, 50 years, 60 years later. I wish that for you. My wish for you is that you become that absolute inspiration in the life of every person who comes into contact with you, whether it's a child, whether it's an adult, where when they think of something worthwhile, something noble, they think of you. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope you enjoyed this. Feel free to ask questions, to share thoughts. All my contact details are in this video. And of course, feel free to share this everywhere, no cost. Thank you very much once again.